Welcome to Robotics Roundtable on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM, featuring area robotics teams and special guests in the robotics world. Robotics Roundtable is supported by Berrien Springs Public Schools, together inspiring students to think, learn, achieve, and care in a global community. Cook Nuclear Plant. Explore careers at aep.com/careers. South Haven Public Schools, inspiring success in learning, leadership, and life. And Lakeshore Public Schools, supporting and offering STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, grounded in tradition, committed to excellence.
Hello and welcome to Robotics Roundtable on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM. I am your host, Tim Dunai. We meet here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. to discuss high school robotics with teams from the Southwest Michigan area. You can also catch any Robotics Roundtable discussion you've missed on WSJM.com as a podcast or see the video of our discussion on WSJM's Facebook page. This evening, we're continuing a conversation with some folks from outside of the area. So we're welcoming back Kyle Hughes and Scott Heister from the east side of the state to Robotics Roundtable. And even though I stated your names, I'm going to let you just introduce who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been involved with FIRST. So we'll start with Kyle.
Hi, I'm Kyle Hughes. I'm a math teacher in Clarkston, Michigan, and I've been mentoring in robotics for the past 25 years for Team Rush.
Excellent. And Scott?
And I'm Scott Heister. I am from Team 66, and I was teaching a whole bunch of things, physics and science and TV production at Willow Run High School for 22 years, and then transitioned when the school closed to Ypsilanti, and was there for 5 years, and currently the MySTEM director for Southeast and South Central Michigan.
So we talked last week, and we talked about the great thing about being involved with FIRST, and we talked about your aha moment, that thing that gets you to talk about FIRST, and we have those special things that we always recall from events. But what I'm interested to talk about a little bit this week is both of you as educators, your background and how being involved in FIRST has helped you or guided you towards how maybe you go about instructing, how you try to either shape what you do, or how you try to help students find their path, whatever their path may be. I mean, all of us start with the objective of what we want to do, and then we get these roadblocks put in the way, and it's really another opportunity. But at the moment that roadblock shows up in front of you, it's just a roadblock until you find out, hey, there's actually another path for where I'm headed. So Kyle, if you want to kind of kick things off and start a little, am I putting you on the spot? You want me to throw it to Scott? I can do that too.
Okay. You just covered so many things. Let me first start with how it affects me as a teacher. When we first started our program, my husband, who is my lead engineer, came to me and said, I want this to be more like a football team. And I kind of, I've never been on a football team. I've always played tennis, and, I was a downhill skier. I was always an individual sport person. So the team element to me was brand new. I think now very, very clearly as we walk into an event, as we prepare for the event, we go through a lot of the same routines as maybe a football team, where you need to depend on your teammates in order to be successful. And so having said that, students, the programmers need to depend on the electrical, who needs to depend on the mechanical, who needed to depend on the shop machinists. And because of that, there is no quarterback. Maybe the drivers might be, but essentially there is no quarterback. They're all front linemen. And they all need to get credit for what they're doing, because we can't do what we're doing if they're not blocking for those drivers and making sure that it's great.
So would it be fair to say, I mean, it's a preparedness thing, right, Scott? So, I mean, you and I know that you've coached hockey in the past too. I mean, so that sports analogy, and this is a high school sport that we participate in, that we're involved in. If anybody doesn't believe it, please come to a gymnasium where a robotics competition is. You will hear nothing louder. But Scott, to that point, some of that, the preparedness that you do, preparing for a sport and bringing that towards either being at a competition or just how you run your day. Can you take some analogies there?
Yeah, certainly. I did. I coached hockey for many years at the high school level, and I really view what I did to prepare students for a game very similar to what we do in robotics. To every level, we're training those students to perform on a specific, task. And it may not be on the competition day. It may be, you're working with the chairman's students to practice, questions, to practice their preparation and presenting. So you're going out and presenting, practicing, just like you do, when you're running drills in hockey. Certainly a lot of analogies can be brought together and linked when you're looking at, the similarities between how you prepare students or players to play a sport and how we're preparing our players on the robotics field to perform during a competition or, going into that competition and getting the robot ready.
So Scott, if you take that and we just kind of build upon that, we've prepared them for these events and competing in robotics, whether you're focused on the awards or the competition itself. But now those things that we've done to get prepared for that, talk about how we're preparing students, and each student is almost individual as far as how they're going to take to that direction and preparing them for their next steps down the road, which could be, hey, I'm headed for a 4-year engineering degree. I'm headed for, for the trades. I want to do something. Maybe I just want to go into the marketing program, and I've really discovered that. So talk a little bit about how your experiences in FIRST kind of help you with how you instruct students and run a program.
So I think I learned a ton about teaching and learning from FIRST, and in how that kind of translated to what students did throughout the day, not just in my class, but throughout the day in other classes. We found that students were actually pushing on teachers to change the way teachers taught because they were more prepared. They didn't have to do the same levels of preparation with students to do a presentation. The students were now prepared to do that. So it shifted kind of the onus of the more rudimentary things were no longer necessary in classrooms. And so it really did shift kind of our school culture. And for me, it shifted the way I thought about teaching, period, in terms of everything has to have an intentional reason for doing it. Everything needs to be for a purpose. And there's so much research out there that shows that, unless you're doing something for a reason, you're going to forget it anyway. And so that's kind of how I developed my classrooms after that. And as students went on and looking at, ended up in a middle college program where we were working very hand in hand with our community college, Washington Community College. And the skills that were necessary to be successful in college were the same skills we were teaching to be successful in the robotics program.
Did you find also, I mean, this will be a quick yes, no, but did you find also in that experience where the students came in and they were kind of driving the teacher to be more prepared, did the student body kind of hold each other a little bit more accountable and kind of push each other even before they were pushing at the teacher?
Oh, easily, yes. They in the program, and you can see it in a competition. Students are looking out for each other and helping each other rise up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kyle, how about you? I mean, the same kind of thing there where and this is really just an open discussion. I'm sure as Scott was talking, there were things that you were thinking where it's like, I want to add to the discussion. So go for it.
So a couple of things. I liked what he was talking about, creating demand for new things because of Rush, because of what FIRST was expecting us to do. There was a great need for marketing. So all of a sudden, our program started the Adobe Suite, the Illustrator, Photoshop, so that we could create the videos, the amount of video. You had mentioned, Scott, in the last presentation that we did about our video of those guys getting up. That was done by one of our alumni who came and worked with our kids, and they all had the training. So we also created that desire and that need. But I think for me as an educator, I learned, and I'm really big into mindfulness, and I'm big into fail faster, learn more, focus, and execute. And so that's like my mantra in class. And I will tell, because of FIRST, because we would get into a situation and we'd go back and forth and back and forth, and we wouldn't just fail. we'd try to walk or talk ourselves out of it. And because we didn't fail, we'd get behind. And if we just failed at what we were doing and we looked at it and we analyzed it, growth mindset is going to allow us to learn more. And so then we could focus and execute at a tournament. And I think for me, I teach that way. I tell my kids, my new students every year, I'm like, you go home and tell your parents, I just asked you to fail. I want you to do it faster. The sooner you fail, the sooner you understand what you don't know, the sooner you can learn it and then move forward. And because of that, I look at kids a month down the road and say, you're asking me this now? You have not failed fast enough. Where was this before? And I think they transfer that, between both robotics and within my classrooms, because I'm really about growth mindset too. I just really think that they need to fail in order to grow. So having said that, students who don't know how to fail go off to college or go off into life or whatever. When they fail, it's huge and they don't know how to handle it. And I told you guys in the last show, we have failed a lot. So we have learned how to fail and say, all right, what do we do now? It's not life shattering. It's what do we do now so we can move forward? And I think that's really important.
Would you think it's, as you were stating that, I'm thinking too, it took me to a point in my life before I would sit in the room and go, I've got a question and I'm going to raise my hand. I've become that guy who just asks questions because there's 4 people who don't know, but it's getting past that fear of being the person who doesn't know. And then suddenly you learn more and people around you learn more. Do you guys think that's a fair, it's a fair analogy, I think.
Well, it's also the difference between someone with a growth and a simple mindset, a fixed mindset. And if they're a fixed mindset, they're more afraid of what people are thinking around them than whether or not they're willing to be open to learn those new ideas. When you have a growth mindset, you open yourself up to the vulnerability of not knowing so that you can learn more. And I think as we become adults, that becomes maybe easier for some of us because we've failed enough as we've gone. But and I want to just tap onto something earlier. You were talking about opportunities for kids, and I think that another thing that FIRST is really awesome about is that kids have the opportunities. This past week, I taught a section on Illustrator, and we talked about laser cutting with the Glowforge. We talked about 3D printing, additive and subtractive engineering, and all I told them was these are skill sets, and if you can do this, work with someone that has these tools and get yourself an Etsy store and you'll start making money.
Yeah.
Or this week we're talking about Tinkercad, and with Tinkercad, you know what? Find things that, their project is, and it's just a mini project, but find a problem, create a solution, and then 3D print it. With face masks all over the place, they're all over people's houses. Make something sweet for your parents that has the little names on it, little teeny hooks. You make it, print it, you put it on the wall and the little face masks go on it, you've solved a problem.
Yeah.
But what is a problem that you can solve? And from that, they're 3D printing, they're using 3D modeling, they're doing these opportunities today that I didn't have as a child.
Yeah.
That are just enormous, and they all come from on FIRST, we want to know how to 3D print better. We want to know additive and subtractive engineering. We want all these processes. Let's throw them in the classroom and let them play with them.
Scott, how about you? I'm going to let you add a little bit based upon what Kyle said. I'm not even going to try to set anything up.
One of the things that she made me think about is, one of our mantras is fail forward. Same thing. You will fail, and I like the fail faster, type of thing, but we always said fail forward. It's like realize what you did and then move forward. The other thing that I wanted to say is along the lines of, students graduating out of the program, they don't necessarily have to go to college to be successful. They find skills in the robotics experience. I had my videographer back in the early 2000s. He now owns his own videography company. He went to a community college and got his some experience through the community college. And now he owns his own videography production company down in Kentucky. And he's the one who you've seen our videos many times. He's the one who produces all of our videos, and he's one of our former students. That was his job when he was on the team.
Excellent. The bad thing about good conversations, and it goes by very fast. I want to thank both of you for spending some time with us both this week and last week. And I think if we needed to, we could probably do like an 8-week series and have discussions and really not have anything set out in mind. It's just bouncing off of each other. It's been awesome to see you guys face to face because we haven't been able to be at a competition in a year and a half. So missing that part of it, I'm sure that we will get back to competing in competitions and seeing each other face to face. I want to thank both of you for the amount of time that you've spent with the FIRST community. You're both, I consider to be great friends and great mentors to me, whether you want to be or not. I appreciate all of the time that you've had discussions with me. And again, thank you for taking time to join us today. Once again, this is Tim Denai with Robotics Roundtable on 94.9 WSJM. We'll be right back to talk with another team from Southwest Michigan area. Thanks. You guys have a great night.
Yep, thank you. Good to see you guys.
Hello and welcome to Robotics Roundtable on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM. I'm your host, Tim Dunai. We meet here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. to discuss high school robotics with teams from the Southwest Michigan area. You can also catch any robotics roundtable discussion you missed on WSJM.com as a podcast or see the video of our discussion on WSJM's Facebook page. Today, we are joined by the Riley Wildbots from South Bend, Indiana. In the world of FIRST Robotics, every team has an assigned team number, and they are Team 3865. Welcome to Robotics Roundtable. You guys can wave for the camera. Thank you guys for joining me today. We're getting towards the end of our season, and I'm glad we have the opportunity to get you guys onto the radio and into the Facebook program. I'd like to have you go around the horn here, and let's introduce yourselves. Give me your name, your grade level, how long you've been involved with robotics. And we're going to start in what as I see is the lower left-hand corner for me. Let's start with Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I've been with this team for 4 years now, and before I joined this team, I was on an FLL team for 3 years, so in total 7 years with FIRST Robotics, and I'm now a senior in high school.
Very good, very good. Perrin and Matthew, I see you guys are there together. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Perrin. I'm a junior, and I've been part of the Lego League for 3 years, and then the Robotics League for another 3. So okay. 6 in total.
Very good, 6. Matthew, how about you?
Okay, my name is Matthew, whichever one you prefer. I prefer Matt. But I've been a part of FLL, so Lego League, for 2 years, and then I've been a part of this team for 3 years, so 5 years total, and I'm currently a junior.
Excellent, excellent. Ray, how about you, sir?
All right, well, hello, my name's Ray. I'm a senior on our team, and I've been a part of our team for 3 years since my sophomore year.
Very good. And our mentors. Becky, let's start with you.
All right, my name's Becky Humberger. I've been with the team for this is my 2nd year.
And Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a teacher at Riley High School, and I've been working with the team. This is my 8th season in FRC. And this was my first experience with FRC, this team, so I didn't have any prior experience.
Oh, okay, okay. And Becky, you are also an instructor there at Riley, correct?
Yeah, I teach chemistry and physics at Riley High School.
Okay, all right, great. Well, it's nice to meet all of you. So how about if we talk a little bit about what has been going on this year? We're meeting in a virtual space to do Robotics Roundtable, and I have to imagine that meeting in virtual spaces has been a part of the curriculum for how you've been able to work together as a team for robotics. Talk a little bit about doing that. Has it been very much difficulty? And you're also participating in what specific competitions for the 2021 season? Jake, how if I let you start with that?
So I've found that learning in this virtual environment and being on this team in the virtual environment became probably twice as hard as it used to be. Mainly, I think for me, it's maintaining focus. There's so many things around me at home that can distract me from doing my schoolwork and robotics work, but robotics is a little easier because it's something I enjoy more than school.
Right.
Did you participated? Go ahead.
Yeah. So what do you guys, what have you competed in as a team of the at-home challenges? Tell me we'll go into a little bit more detail in a bit, but which challenges have you done as a team at home?
So we worked in so we did the hyperdrive challenge, and then we also attempted the interstellar accuracy challenge.
Okay.
And we also did our team challenge.
And so the first two are robot challenges, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Um, what about Ray? If you want to talk a little bit about this year, I think maybe probably echoing what Jake had to say as far as working in this environment, but talk a little bit about what you were able to do with the robot challenge this year as a team. Did you guys add anything to the robot from what you did or what you had last year?
Not really. So, of course, robotics being pretty hands-on type of extracurricular, having to do things over Google Meet or Zoom or whatever you use isn't very feasible. So when we were finally able to meet in person in about February, we really didn't have much time to make modifications to the robot, which is perfectly fine because we were actually pretty happy with what we had built the prior spring and winter. So we didn't make many adjustments to the robot. We feel like it was pretty much good to go. And so we just kind of sent it right into those challenges. And for the most part, yeah, it worked. We made a couple of little modifications to the intake and just little adjustments, making sure that, wheels stayed on and all that jazz.
Okay. Perrin, Perrin and Matt, if you want to add into that at all, as far as working in kind of this remote environment, did you find that it was a little bit more challenging this year to stay focused, to Jake's point, or was it just because it's robotics, you're a little bit more fired up to participate in that?
I'd say it was a lot more difficult to stay focused on things outside of robotics, but it was relatively the same in this club because the internet, having to do everything on the internet made it harder to stay focused on work outside of this. But in robotics, it's always been kind of hard not to be focused on some part of it because it's such an interesting thing to do.
Matt, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, now of course, a lot of what parents said is true for me too. Working on stuff like this virtual has its difficulties and especially focus. Now, luckily for me, my part in being a part of this team is our head programmer. So a lot of my stuff I can do remotely. However, of course, a big part of programming is testing it. And when you don't have a robot to test, you don't know for sure if your code's going to work because 99%, I will tell you this from experience, 99% of the time your code will not work. Maybe 80 if you've gotten good, but 99% of the time until you test it, you don't know for sure that it's going to work.
So are you revealing some secret right now? Because everyone else on the build and electrical was like, wait a second, you told us you knew what you were doing. So now you're telling them, and the 80% efficiency is, I don't know.
Oh yeah, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But after a couple years, things start to get better and you get, faster and more accurate. So luckily my stuff is starting to go higher, but I promise you there will be those days where 99% of the time what you write, it's not going to work, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, you guys would all agree, that's probably part of the fun is, okay, we tried it, it didn't work, now let's troubleshoot, let's assess what didn't work and how do we make it work.
Yeah, especially about 90% of the time you spend is going to be troubleshooting. The other 10% will be that creation. But yeah.
Very good. I like that. I like that breakdown. That that part where you allow the troubleshooting and then the creation. Not necessarily the fact that we have to resolve issues, but we're still creating. It's ever changing. So we are gathered here with Team 3865, Riley Wildbots from South Bend, Indiana. Before the break, we talked a little bit about the team and what they've been doing this year, some of their work with the robots, even in a remote environment. But one of the other challenges that the team has been able to participate in this year is the game design challenge. And want to go ahead and start discussion maybe with Perrin. I think through past discussion, Perrin, I know that you were involved. You had some ideas and some concepts maybe to what you wanted to build the game design challenge around. So let's start with discussion there, and the others can feel free to join in.
So yeah, the idea that we ended up going with was centered around the city transportation. So like buses, trains, cars, and trucks. That was my idea, and it just came from us brainstorming and me thinking of things that I would like to see or thought was interesting concepts that was like new and also flexible to work with. But past the idea, I think Ray and Jake probably had more to do with the actual game design than me. A
Okay.
lot. It was a lot. It was a very fleshed out game that we ended up coming with.
So Ray or Jake, one of you guys want to chime in?
Okay, so this game design, I'm very proud of how we did with this game design. I had a blast doing it, just because it's something different that we've never really done, and we're going to incorporate this game design element into our yearly structure to help keep people around over the massive time commitment that robotics is. So it basically starts out, and we've come up with this idea of city transportation and the different types of vehicles that you see there. And so we figured, well, this might be an interesting way to bring in a unique characteristic to our game of role play, where each team can play a different role on the alliance, and then each role has its pros and cons, and they all balance out to become one team. And it would be good to see that this game was fun and different and had all these different things that you haven't seen before in an FRC game.
So I'm going to jump to you a little bit, Ray, but just curious. I mean, because you guys have all had FLL experience, I think, or the majority of you had. Did that come into play at all? Do you think, where you kind of brought some of the stuff that maybe from a Lego League, where it seems to have a little bit more of the game board? There's a little bit more there to build around. As I looked at the game design, and then just hearing you talk about it, did any of you bring things forward from your Lego League years? Do you think that helped you with coming along with this?
Actually, funny you should say that. I think I'm the only one here who doesn't actually have Lego League experience, though I've played with Legos plenty. We actually ended up doing a lot of our modeling with Lego League Legos.
Okay.
Just to kind of get some of the proportions right and get a sort of a feel for the game, because we weren't going to build a 30-foot field. Yeah.
So the guys who've done Lego League, did your experience and your exposure to Lego League, did you think that helped you kind of developing this game design in mind?
I think I now that I think about it, there was probably a little bit of the ideas behind the research and solving problems that kind of came into play in the unique solutions to problems. And because we came up with problems of how we're going to make these roles balance out, and we found a way to balance that out. But that's about the only way that I can think of that we can tie into the other two might have a better idea, but yeah.
I was just curious. I mean, it just kind of struck me as something that with your exposure through Lego League, and it's especially when like I said, I looked at the game design. So tell me a little bit about the how you guys have developed as a team over the years, over your career, each of you, with being involved in the team. Were there some strengths that you found in how you were able to communicate with each other to bring this together as a, everything that you're doing throughout the year, but specifically this game design challenge where you're kind of working remotely and then coming together?
So I think working remotely was the game design was about the only thing we could really do remotely at the point where that's all we did remotely. So what happened is we said one day brainstorm ideas, and then everyone kind of had their own ideas, and then Perrin's idea of city transportation came out, and then we just kept, for the next couple of meetings, we just basically discussed different ideas of what we can do inside that theme, and then it all kind of pieced itself together, and the roles thing came about, and the different elements that we have, aka, or for example, a stoplight feature where once a certain amount of cargo, which is a game piece, is collected, then the stoplight is triggered, and it causes the other alliance to have to stop for a period of 30 seconds, I think it was.
Right.
Or seconds, and then play resumes as normal. And then we brought in another element of this tow truck at the end in the end game, where one robot on each alliance would randomly get disabled, and then to get the most points, you'd have to get that robot back to the end spot with the other two robots.
So Matt, as the programmer, while you guys were going through this game design challenge, did you look at any of this and go, how would I do programming for any of this?
I kind of did for some of the elements, like you know what? For some of the elements, I thought through like my basic, what I go through when I look at a game. I think, okay, I separate the elements and think, okay, what specifically would I need for this? What would I need for that? And we weren't playing the game, so I didn't pay too much attention to it, but I did think about it.
Yeah, and that's why I was just curious. I didn't mean to cut you off, at just trying to that mindset as you guys are working through this game design challenge, and Perrin, once you had the idea, and then you watched. I'm curious, as you watched as the team developed what you had as an idea and took it to an actual game design. Was it what you envisioned at the beginning when you were thinking about it?
Well, the final idea or the final concept that we had was, it was a lot different from what I was imagining, because like obviously my idea was just kind of the first thing that came to mind, so it was very simple, but it ended up becoming a very interesting role play sort of thing where there's a lot more variance in it when I was thinking a lot more basic than the other ideas and other people whose ideas that end up making it become what it was. I think most of those came from, or at least the role play thing, I think that came from Miss Meyer, and like the game board was from Ray.
Gotcha. Ray, so we've got maybe about a minute or so here in this section. So just talk about your piece a little bit about there, what Perrin had referenced, what your input was there, and what you thought about that process.
Yeah, so kind of like I said, we used some Legos and stuff, and we went through a couple of different rough prototypes, and then even one sort of functioning prototype of our board. Just drawn on a couple pieces of construction paper with markers and stuff. I've actually made a couple of different board games just for fun before, so some of that definitely transferred over.
Okay.
But yeah, trying to get a feel for how things would actually work was definitely important. So modeling those things out, we made little tiny model robots and tried moving those around the board with the game elements, including the cargo and some of the people that were transported, as well as the larger game elements that they would be interacting with, like loading docks and a garage where they start and end the game.
Oh, excellent. I'm sure it's a lot of the things that the game designers usually come up with at first when they're coming up with these.
right, are we working again?
I think we're working. We're recording again. Better than just working, Catherine. We are recording.
Indeed.
Waiting for Becky to come back. There she is. All right, so we've got everybody back on. So we'll come back this last section. This one's just, it's a quick wrap up. Things went by quickly. We had good discussion for the last two portions there, so it took up a bit of time. So this is probably just enough time for you guys to kind of give shout outs. This is an opportunity for students to shout out to mentors, to parents, to teammates, and same thing vice versa for mentors too. And then I may throw one surprise question at the end, just to get the last bit of use up the last bit of time there. So, all right, we'll have you guys go ahead here. Hello and welcome back to Robotics Roundtable News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM. This is Tim Denai, and we are finishing our conversation with Team 3865, the Riley Wildbots. I knew I was going to get the tongue twister in there. Now's the time where we allow the team, mentors and students to give a shout out to somebody or a group of somebodies that have kind of helped them along the way, whether it's this season or throughout their entire robotics career. And we'll start out with Ray. I'm going to start with you. Why don't you go ahead and throw a shout out there?
Alrighty, well, I got a couple. I'm going to start with pretty much the entire engineering department at our school. I've had classes with pretty much every single one of them. They're all phenomenal people. They're all great teachers. And they've really helped inspire me and show me that, first of all, teach me so much, but show me that this is the sort of thing that I want to be able to do. This is the sort of thing I'm going to study in college and hopefully do for a career. Secondly, I got to thank Jacob for getting me involved in FIRST Robotics. I didn't do it my freshman year, and I really wish I had. But he didn't relent. He kept nagging me to come and check it out, and finally it stuck. So again, thanks so much, man. And lastly, I got to thank our mentors here, our coaches, Miss Meyer and Mrs. Humbarger, because like you said earlier, they're both teachers. They have full-time jobs and lives, and so it's a big sacrifice for them to help us out pretty much every day.
Very good. Perrin, how about you?
I definitely want to thank Miss Travavi from LaSalle. She was the one that did a lot to get me into the first year of the Lego League that I was able to go in. She did a lot she really didn't need to, and I probably wouldn't have stayed or went into it or have found out about it if it wasn't for her. So I definitely have to thank her for that.
Very good. Very good. Anyone else you want to add to that, or?
My parents, of course, because they're the ones that take me here, so I wouldn't even be able to stay if it wasn't for them.
Definitely. Parents, to say parents are always, that's always a good one to fail back on, to make sure you thank your parents for everything.
Yeah.
Jake, how about you, sir?
I'd like to thank both the coaches and mentors for everything that they do for the team, putting up with us, being there when we need them, and just in general making it possible for us to have this team. And then I also like to thank my parents, because they're the ones who convinced me to stick with this, and I almost did do robotics, and they're the ones who convinced me, yeah, you should do this. And I can't imagine what it would be like without this in my life.
That's great. That's great. Hopefully it's something that all three of you will continue on with. Perrin, I know you're only a junior, but Jake and Ray, as you guys retire from your high school careers, you still have that that point where you can play the role of the mentors and pay back a little bit. Becky, and how about you? Any shout outs for you?
Shout out to Jake for asking me to be a coach almost 2 years ago. Shout out to all three of these guys in particular for Jacob, Ray, and Perrin they just had a lot of enthusiasm for the game design and no complaints. I know it was a really rough, a big disappointment last March, but they haven't been harping on that and whining about it. They've been doing things this year and enjoying it, and really, I haven't heard any complaining out of them. Shout out to Steve Kane. He's also been sort of out of the loop this year because he lost his job during the pandemic and has been looking for other work and different schedule and hasn't been involved this year. And shout out to Catherine. It's really fun working with her.
And Steve is one of the fellow mentors, correct?
Yeah.
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 And Catherine, how about you? I'm going to let you give shout out, and then also just give us something positive to end on. Probably one of the most positive things you've taken away from your involvement with FIRST Robotics.
Sure. So I will close out the shout outs by naming all the other mentors who haven't been named so far. So Eli Staley and Miles Bimrose have been very instrumental in the last several years with our team, in addition to Steve Kane. Also, we should thank Sean Henderson, who's our principal, who has fought for space for us and has helped us keep the team going forward, which is really great. And we have to give a huge thanks to the entire FIRST in Indiana organization, and especially Chris Osborne, who runs that. Didn't look like we were going to get to participate in the at-home challenges for a while, but he really did absolutely make that happen. There were a lot of very long phone calls, but we managed to make that happen this year, and it wouldn't have without his help. So we're super grateful. And then for a closing here, I'd like to circle back around to some stuff I think Matt was saying earlier, and others alluded to, which is this idea of troubleshooting when things don't work right, and how difficult that can be and how frustrating. But I really want to point out that right there is where learning happens, right? When you do something and it works the first time, that's cool. But when you do it and it doesn't work, and then you have to track down the problem and figure out how to fix the problem and keep iterating over and over again, that's where all the magic happens. And that's the really fun stuff, at least from my perspective.
I would say that's excellent. That's a great way to end it too. I met with a couple of other educators before you guys, and that's a part of this show. And that was one of the things we talked about, is failing and failing fast. So as soon as you fail fast, then you start to troubleshoot, and that's where you grow.
Yep.
With that, I'm going to wrap things up. I want to thank the Riley Wildbots for joining us. It's been great getting to talk with you, and I appreciate you taking time. Once again, this is Tim Denai with Robotics Roundtable, News Talk Sports, 94.9 WSJM. If it's Tuesday night at 6 p.m., it is time for Robotics Roundtable. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you for joining Robotics Roundtable on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM. If you missed any of today's discussion, you can check out the podcast at WSJM.com. Robotics Roundtable is supported by Berrien Springs Public Schools, together inspiring students to think, learn, achieve, and care in a global community. Cook Nuclear Plant. Explore careers at aep.com/careers. South Haven Public Schools, inspiring success in learning, leadership, and life. And Lakeshore Public Schools, supporting and offering STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Grounded in tradition, committed to excellence.